So an audio interface. Well, what is an audio interface? What does it do? What is it for? And do you need an audio interface? Well, let's go over some of those questions in today's video. Hey everyone, my name is Supercy Jules. Welcome to Supercy and welcome to this series called Studio 101. In this series, I'm talking about the real basics of music production. So especially if you're new to music production, you might want to consider subscribing because I've got a lot to tell you. So audio interfaces. So what is an audio interface? Well, before I tell you, let me first real quickly explain to you what sound is, as far as I understand it. So sound is basically vibrations. So if I'm doing something like this, what I'm actually doing is I'm putting in motion the air molecules surrounding my fingers, and just like it would when I drop some item in the ocean, let's say I'm dropping a stone in the ocean, what happens is that will disrupt the water surface. A wave is formed and that wave will spread out across the ocean. Just like that, when I'm doing this, the air molecules will be disrupted, it will form a wave, and that wave will spread out across this room. Now at some point that wave will reach my ears, and I just happen to have some very impressive equipment inside of my ears. Well, actually everyone has basically the same organs in their ears. Okay, everyone has very impressive equipment in their ears. Now this equipment is able to detect this disruption, this wave, and our brains can then somehow interpret this as what we call sound. Now if we want to record sound, there are basically two techniques. Or at least two techniques that I know of. If you know of any other techniques, please let me know, leave a comment. But I know of two techniques. First one is analog. Now what is analog? Analog uses variations of voltage of an electrical signal. And with that it tries to mimic variations of air pressure that a sound is. Okay, so that is the analog technique in a nutshell. And we have used this technique for many decades. You know, and to this day, we're using a lot of analog equipment. I mean, most people are using computers for music productions, but still we're using a lot of equipment that is analog by nature. So for instance, microphone. Analog. We're using guitars, bass guitars, keyboards, your speakers. It's all analog by nature. But now, as I mentioned, most of us are using computers to record music, to mix, etc. Well, I haven't done any scientific survey, but I'm sure it's most of us, right? Now, computers are digital by nature, which means that if I'm using some analog equipment, so let's say that I'm using a microphone, well, this obviously is a pen, we use that for writing. But let's say I'm using an actual microphone to record. And I want to record the signal coming from the microphone onto a computer. Now, as I mentioned, a computer is digital by nature. And by the way, that is the second technique of recording sound. The first one was analog, second one is digital. Microphone, however, is analog by nature. So if I want to record this onto a computer, this is what happens. So first of all, I'm producing some sounds with my mouth or whatever. Well, hopefully my mouth. The sound goes into the microphone. The microphone kind of translates it into analog sound, an analog signal. But then if we want to record it into a computer, it first needs to be digitalized. So before it goes into the computer, some kind of conversion needs to take place. And that is where an audio interface comes in. So the core purpose of an audio interface, or at least in my opinion, is to convert analog sound to digital sound so that you can use it on your computer and store it on your computer, but also the other way around, so digital sound to analog sound so you can reproduce it with speakers or headphones. By the way, most audio interfaces nowadays have both analog to digital and digital to analog converters. But anyway, again, in my opinion, the core purpose of an audio interface is conversion. But you might say, okay, Percy, that's all very nice. You've been telling this very nice and very informative story. Why, thank you. But I already have a computer with a built-in sound card. And a sound card basically does the same thing. It converts analog to digital and digital to analog. So why would I need an audio interface? Well, you're absolutely right. A sound card does all of that. I mean, a sound card basically is a kind of audio interface. So then why would you need an other audio interface then? Well, my first answer would be sound quality. I mean, if you're at least a little bit serious about music production, then the built-in sound card on your computer, especially if it's a Windows computer, is not gonna cut it. The quality simply isn't good enough. You know, and I mean, it's possible, especially if you're just starting out or if you're not that serious about music production, you could use your built-in sound card. It's possible. But again, if you're at least a little bit serious about music production, I would definitely recommend an audio interface based on the difference in sound quality alone. Now nowadays, most audio interfaces also come with some other functionalities than only conversion. I already talked about the sound quality, which is usually expressed in sample rate and bit depth and things like that. Other than that, there are some other benefits to audio interfaces. One of them being latency. Now, what is latency? Well, for instance, let's say that I'm singing into a microphone and I want to record it. Signal goes into the microphone, being converted into analog sound. That is being converted into digital sound by your audio interface or your sound card. That signal then is being processed in your computer. Sometimes we also want to add some effects like reverb, for instance. Then that signal is being converted back into analog sound and is being sent to an output like your headphones. All right? Now, between the moment that the signal goes into your microphone and comes out of your headphones, there is a delay. And that delay is what we call latency, which can be very, very disruptive if you want to monitor yourself while singing or playing. So we want to reduce the amount of latency as much as possible. Now, if you have at least a decent audio interface, you're probably going to be able to reduce the amount of latency to an acceptable level. If you only have a built-in sound card on your computer, that's probably not going to work. Now, another feature about audio interfaces these days is the connections. Now, as an example, here I have a tiny little audio interface, but I really love this one, so don't let the size fool you, okay? Now, we're talking about connections. This one only has a few. So on the front here we have a DI input for instruments like keyboards. On the back we have one combination line XLR input for guitars, bass guitars and also microphones. What this one is lacking is MIDI connection. So some audio interfaces come with some MIDI connectors so you can connect any MIDI controller directly to your audio interface. Now, as far as outputs go, this one has two headphone outputs on the front and two outputs left and right on the back for your speakers. Now, again, this is a very small audio interface, but as you can imagine, there are audio interfaces that have a lot of inputs, so you can record an entire band all at once, and have a lot of outputs, so you can connect it to some outboard gear so you can mix externally, for instance. You know, so that is a very, very important feature about audio interfaces these days, the connections. Now, last but by no means least, preamps. Now, what is a preamp? Now, some devices, like microphones usually, they produce a signal that is very, very weak. Now, if you would record that signal directly into your computer, it would become virtually unusable. The signal is too weak. All right? So what you need to do is you need to amplify that signal. You need to pre-amplify it before it goes into your computer. Now, most audio interfaces these days, if not all of them, come with some kind of preamp built into it. Okay? And to many people, this is one of the most important features of an audio interface, because that ultimately determines the quality of the sound going into your computer. And once it's there, you can tweak it, but you will never be able to change the basic quality of that sound. So preamplifiers, very, very important. Okay, well, I believe that about covers the question what an audio interface is. Well, it's a device that you use to record and monitor your music with. And again, if you're at least a little bit serious about music production, then I would highly recommend picking one up yourself if you haven't already. Okay, now if you have any questions about audio interfaces, then don't hesitate to leave a comment below and I will do my best to answer to the best of my abilities. Now, if you want to see more videos like this, then again consider subscribing, and if you do, then don't forget to click that notification bell so you know exactly when a new video is up. Now, for now, thank you for watching and I will talk to you very soon.